The snow crunched beneath my boots as I walked up the familiar path to my parents' house, the porch light glowing like a beacon in the dusk. My breath curled in the cold air, but my heart was warm with anticipation. New Year's at home always meant laughter, old stories, and the comfort of belonging. I paused at the door, smoothing my hair, rehearsing the smile I'd been saving for months. I could already hear the muffled sounds of music and clinking glasses inside. For a moment, I let myself believe that this year would be different, better, maybe than the last. But when the door swung open, it wasn't my mother's arms or my father's grin that greeted me. It was my brother, standing tall and rigid, his eyes colder than the winter night. He didn't move aside. Instead, he looked me up and down, his lips pressed into a thin, hard line. "This year's only for real family," he said, voice flat, almost rehearsed. The words hit me like a slap. I blinked, searching his face for a hint of a joke, a glimmer of the brother I used to know. But there was nothing, just that wall of ice. Behind him, I caught a glimpse of the living room, golden and warm, filled with people I'd known my whole life. My parents, aunts, cousins, everyone but me. I stood there, suitcase in hand, heart pounding, as the door hovered between open and closed. My brother's words echoed in my ears, sharp and final. What did he mean by real family? Was I not one of them anymore? Growing up, my brother and I were inseparable. We built forts in the backyard, chased fireflies on humid summer nights, and whispered secrets under the covers long after our parents thought we were asleep. He was older by 2 years, but he never made me feel small. If anything, he was my shield, my partner in every childhood adventure. Our parents loved to tell stories about how, as a toddler, I'd follow him everywhere, clutching his hand with stubborn determination. He'd roll his eyes, but he never let go. Our family was big on traditions. Every New Year's Eve, we'd gather in the living room, light sparklers, and make wishes for the year ahead. My mother would bake her famous honey cake, and my father would play old records, spinning us around the room until we were dizzy with laughter. Those nights felt endless, safe, and golden. I believed, with the certainty only children have, that nothing could ever change. But as we grew older, small cracks began to show. My brother started pulling away, spending more time with his friends, less time with me. At first, I thought it was just the way things went, siblings growing up, finding their own paths. But sometimes I'd catch him looking at me with a strange expression, as if he was searching for something he couldn't quite name. There were other signs, too. My parents, always loving, sometimes seemed to treat me with a carefulness they didn't show my brother. They'd hush their voices when I entered the room, or exchange glances over my head. At family gatherings, relatives would ask my brother about his grades, his sports, his plans for the future, while I got polite smiles and vague compliments. I told myself it didn't matter, that I was just being sensitive, but the feeling of being on the outside looking in began to grow. One year, when I was 12, I overheard my aunt whispering to my mother in the kitchen. "She's nothing like him," she said, her voice low but urgent. My mother shushed her, but the words stuck with me. I started to notice the differences, my brother's dark hair and sharp features, my own lighter coloring and softer face. I wondered if anyone else saw it, or if it was just another thing I was imagining. Despite the growing distance, I clung to our traditions. I tried to bridge the gap, inviting my brother to join me in old games or late-night talks, but he always seemed distracted, impatient. The warmth between us cooled, replaced by a polite indifference that hurt more than outright anger ever could. High school made things worse. My brother became the golden child, star athlete, honor roll, the one everyone expected great things from. I drifted through those years, never quite fitting in, always compared to him. Teachers would ask if I was his little sister, their expectations heavy on my shoulders. At home, the gap widened. My parents celebrated his victories, while my own achievements felt like afterthoughts. Still, I tried. I baked the honey cake with my mother, even when she seemed distracted. I helped my father decorate the house, even when he barely noticed. I smiled through the awkward silences, the feeling of being a guest in my own home. I told myself that families go through rough patches, that things would get better. But deep down, I felt the shift. The sense of belonging I'd once taken for granted was slipping away, replaced by a quiet ache I couldn't name. I started to wonder if I'd ever truly belonged, or if I'd just been pretending all along. The memory that haunts me most is from a New Year's Eve when I was 16. We gathered for the annual family photo, everyone crowding together in front of the fireplace. My brother stood in the center, arms around our parents, grinning for the camera. I stood at the edge, half in shadow, smiling because I was supposed to. When I look at that photo now, I see it clearly, the distance, the way I'm just slightly apart, as if I already knew I was on the outside looking in. I stood on the porch, the cold seeping through my coat, my brother's words echoing in my ears. For a moment, I considered turning around, getting back in my car, and driving away. But the house, the memories, pulled me in. I squared my shoulders and stepped inside, determined not to let him push me out of my own family. The warmth of the living room hit me like a wave, but it did nothing to thaw the chill in the air. My parents looked up from the couch, surprise flickering across their faces. My mother's smile was tight, her eyes darting to my brother, as if searching for permission. My father cleared his throat, shifting uncomfortably in his seat. The room was filled with relatives, cousins, aunts, uncles, all of them suddenly very interested in their drinks or the decorations on the mantel. "Happy New Year," I said, forcing cheer into my voice. No one answered right away. My aunt gave me a quick, awkward hug, her arms stiff. My cousin mumbled a greeting, eyes fixed on the floor. My mother finally stepped forward, brushing a strand of hair from my face, but her touch was fleeting, almost apologetic. "We weren't expecting you," she said quietly, glancing at my brother. I tried to laugh it off. "It's tradition, right?" I couldn't miss the honey cake. My brother hovered near the doorway, arms crossed, watching me with a look I couldn't decipher. The party continued around me, but I felt like a ghost, present but unseen. Conversations died when I approached. Laughter faded to whispers. I caught snippets of words, awkward, should we, before they trailed off into silence. I wandered into the kitchen, hoping for a moment alone. But even there, the tension followed me. I heard voices from the hallway, my parents and my brother speaking in low, urgent tones. "She shouldn't have come," my brother said, his voice sharp. "We can't turn her away," my mother replied, her words trembling. "We agreed to keep things quiet this year," my father added, his voice barely above a whisper. "No drama. Not after everything." My heart pounded in my chest. I pressed myself against the wall, straining to hear more, but their voices faded as they moved down the hall. I stood there, hands shaking, 1,000 questions racing through my mind. What were they keeping quiet? What drama were they so desperate to avoid? I returned to the living room, but the party felt even colder than before. My brother avoided my gaze, my parents busied themselves with meaningless tasks, and the rest of the family acted as if I were invisible. I watched them laugh and share stories, the kind of easy intimacy I remembered from childhood, and felt the ache of exclusion settle deep in my bones. I realized then that this wasn't just about a party. Something had shifted, something I didn't understand. The sense of being an outsider wasn't just in my head, it was real, and it was deliberate. I couldn't ignore it any longer. I needed to know what they were hiding from me. The party blurred around me, voices and laughter muffled by the storm of questions in my mind. I moved through the house like a shadow, searching for answers in the places that once felt safe. Every corner held a memory, but now each one seemed tinged with doubt. I lingered in the hallway, listening for more whispers, but the adults had retreated to the den, their conversation locked behind a closed door. I wandered upstairs, drawn to the old family photo wall. I studied the faces, my brother, always in the center, my parents beaming, and me, always just a little off to the side. I noticed things I'd never seen before. The way my mother's hand rested on my brother's shoulder, the way my father's gaze seemed to skip over me. It was subtle, but now it felt glaring. In my old bedroom, I found boxes of childhood keepsakes. I sifted through them, searching for something anything that might explain the distance. I found birthday cards, school awards, and a faded drawing of our family, stick figures holding hands. My brother's figure was bold and bright, mine smaller, drawn in lighter crayon. Even as a child, had I sensed the difference? Downstairs, I caught my brother watching me from the bottom of the stairs. His eyes narrowed, and he followed me into the kitchen. "You're making things difficult," he said quietly, his tone more warning than concern. "Just let things go. Don't ruin this for everyone." I stared at him, searching for the brother I once knew. What am I supposed to let go of? I asked, my voice trembling. Why is everyone acting like I don't belong here? He shook his head, jaw clenched. "You always have to make everything about you. Just stop digging. It's better for everyone." He left me standing there, more determined than ever. I returned to the living room, where my parents were deep in conversation with my aunt. When they saw me, they fell silent, exchanging uneasy glances. I forced a smile, but inside I was unraveling. Later, as the party wound down, I slipped into my parents' room. I knew it was wrong, but desperation overruled guilt. I opened drawers, searching for anything that might explain the tension. In the back of a drawer, beneath a stack of old holiday cards, I found a bundle of letters tied with a faded ribbon. My hand shook as I untied the knot. Most of the letters were from relatives, birthday wishes, holiday greetings. But one envelope stood out. It was older, the paper yellowed, the handwriting unfamiliar. It was addressed to my mother, but the return address was from a town I'd never heard of. I turned it over and saw the signature, "With love, Miriam." I didn't know anyone named Miriam. My heart raced as I unfolded the letter, careful not to tear the fragile paper. The words inside were intimate, filled with longing and regret. Miriam wrote about missing my mother, about choices made and secrets kept. She mentioned a little girl, described in ways that felt eerily familiar. Her hair, her laugh, her stubbornness. I read the letter twice, my mind spinning. Who was Miriam? Why had my mother kept this letter hidden for so many years? And why did the description of the little girl sound so much like me? I heard footsteps in the hallway and quickly tucked the letter back into the envelope, slipping it into my pocket. My brother's voice drifted up the stairs, calling for my parents. I pressed myself against the wall, heart pounding as he passed by without noticing me. Back in my room, I sat on the edge of the bed, the letter burning in my pocket. The pieces didn't fit, but I could feel the shape of a secret, something big enough to fracture a family. I thought about the way everyone had acted tonight, the coldness, the whispers, the warnings to let things go. It all pointed to something they didn't want me to find. I stared at the letter, the unfamiliar name looping across the page, and felt a chill run through me. I had no idea who Miriam was, but I was certain of one thing. She was the key to everything my family was hiding. I waited until the house was quiet, the last of the guests gone, and the echoes of laughter faded into silence. The warmth that used to fill these walls on New Year's Eve was gone, replaced by a coldness that seeped into my bones. I found my parents in the kitchen, cleaning up in tense silence. My brother hovered nearby, arms crossed, watching me with wary eyes. I took a deep breath and placed the letter on the table. "Who is Miriam?" I asked, my voice steady but trembling underneath. My mother froze, a plate slipping from her hands and clattering into the sink. My father's face went pale, his eyes darting to my brother, who stepped forward as if to block me. "Where did you get that?" my mother whispered, her voice barely audible. "I found it in your drawer. I deserve to know the truth. Why does everyone treat me like I don't belong here? What are you all hiding from me?" My brother's jaw tightened. "This isn't the time." "No," I cut him off, my voice rising. "It's never the time, is it? Not for me. Not for the truth." The room felt colder than ever. The contrast to the golden glow of past New Year's Eve's almost cruel. I remembered the warmth of those nights, the feeling of being safe and loved, and wondered if any of it had ever been real. My mother's shoulders shook as she sank into a chair, tears spilling down her cheeks. My father stood behind her, silent and helpless. My brother looked away, unable to meet my eyes. "I'm sorry," my mother whispered, her voice breaking. "We should have told you years ago. Miriam, she's your birth mother. We adopted you when you were a baby. We thought we could protect you, give you a better life. But we were afraid you'd feel different, afraid you'd leave us if you knew. The words hung in the air, heavy and final. My world tilted, everything I thought I knew slipping away. The coldness in the room pressed in, suffocating, as I tried to process what I'd just heard. My brother finally looked at me, his eyes full of something I couldn't name. Guilt, maybe, or relief. The truth was out, and nothing would ever be the same. The silence after my mother's confession was deafening. I stared at her, at my father, at the brother I thought I knew, and felt the ground shift beneath me. My whole life, I'd clung to the idea that I belonged here, that I was part of this family, even when the evidence said otherwise. Now, the truth was out in the open, raw and undeniable. My mother wiped her eyes, her hands trembling. We never wanted you to feel different. We loved you from the moment we brought you home. Miriam, she was young, alone, and couldn't care for you. She asked us to give you the life she couldn't. We promised her we would. My father finally spoke, his voice thick with emotion. You are our daughter. Nothing changes that. We made mistakes, but our love for you was never one of them. I wanted to believe him, but the years of feeling like an outsider, the coldness, the secrets, they all crashed over me at once. Then why did you let me feel so alone? I asked, my voice breaking. Why did you let everyone treat me like I didn't belong? My brother shifted, his face hardening. You don't get it, he said, bitterness creeping into his tone. You were always different. Mom and Dad bent over backwards for you. I was the one who had to step aside, who had to watch them worry about you, coddle you, make sure you were okay. I was the real child, but suddenly everything was about you. His words stung, sharper than I expected. I never asked for any of that, I shot back. All I ever wanted was to be part of this family. I tried so hard, but it was never enough. He laughed, a harsh, bitter sound. You think it was easy for me? Watching you get all the attention, all the sympathy? I was just supposed to accept it, pretend like nothing changed. But it did. Everything changed the day you arrived. My mother reached for him, but he pulled away. We tried to make it work, she pleaded. We tried to be fair, to love you both. My father's voice was quiet, but firm. We made mistakes. We should have told you the truth sooner. But we were afraid of losing you, afraid of what it would do to our family. I looked at each of them, my heart pounding. The anger, the grief, the regret, it was all there, swirling in the air between us. I thought of all the times I'd felt invisible, all the moments I'd tried to win their approval, never knowing the real reason for the distance. I thought of my brother, the resentment in his eyes, the way he'd pushed me away year after year. Tears burned in my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. So what now? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. What am I supposed to do with this? Just pretend everything's fine? My mother shook her head, her face crumpling. No, we can't pretend anymore. But we can try to heal. We can try to be honest, to be a real family if you'll let us. My brother looked away, his jaw clenched. I don't know if I can, he muttered. I don't know if I want to. The pain in his voice was real, and for the first time, I saw the boy I'd grown up with, the one who used to protect me, who used to make me laugh. I realized that he'd lost something, too. Maybe we all had. I stood there, the weight of the secret pressing down on me, and tried to decide what to do next. Part of me wanted to run, to escape the pain and confusion, to find somewhere I truly belonged. But another part of me, the part that remembered the good times, the laughter, the love, wanted to stay, to fight for my place in this family. I took a shaky breath, looking at my parents, at my brother. I don't know if I can forgive you. Not yet. But I'm tired of running. I'm tired of feeling like I don't belong. If we're going to be a family, it has to be real. No more secrets. No more pretending. My mother nodded, hope flickering in her eyes. My father reached for my hand, his grip warm and steady. My brother hesitated, then finally met my gaze, something softer in his expression. The room was still cold, but for the first time all night, I felt a spark of warmth. The truth had shattered us, But maybe, just maybe, it could also be the thing that put us back together. I didn't know what the future would hold, or if we could ever truly heal. But I knew one thing. I wasn't going to let anyone decide my place in this family, but me. The house was quiet in the early hours, the kind of silence that settles after a storm. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, replaying every word, every look, every revelation. My mind was a tangle of anger and grief, but beneath it all, a fragile hope flickered. I knew I couldn't move forward without facing my brother, without trying to understand the pain that had driven us apart. I found him in the backyard, sitting on the old swing set, his breath visible in the cold morning air. He didn't look up as I approached, but I could see the tension in his shoulders, the way his hands gripped the chains. For a moment, I hesitated, unsure of what to say. But honesty was all we had left. "I never wanted to take anything from you," I said quietly, breaking the silence. "I just wanted to belong." He let out a shaky breath, his eyes fixed on the ground. "It always felt like you did, though. Like everything changed when you came. I was the big brother, but suddenly I didn't know where I fit anymore." I sat beside him, the swing creaking under my weight. "I felt the same way. I always thought you were the one who belonged, and I was just extra, like I had to earn my place here." He looked at me then, his eyes red-rimmed but clear. I was jealous. I was angry, but I was scared, too. Scared that if I let you in, there wouldn't be enough room for me. We sat in silence, the weight of years between us. I thought about all the times we'd hurt each other, not out of malice, but out of fear and confusion. "I'm not asking you to forgive me," I said softly, "but I want to try. I want to be your sister, if you'll let me." He nodded, swallowing hard. "I want that too. I don't know how." "Maybe we figure it out together," I offered, a tentative smile tugging at my lips. He managed a small smile in return, and for the first time in years, I saw a glimmer of the brother I'd loved as a child. We sat there, side by side, not saying much, but understanding more than we ever had before. Inside, my parents moved quietly, the house still heavy with the aftermath of truth. There were no easy fixes, no magic words to erase the pain. But as the sun rose, casting pale light over the frost-covered yard, I felt something shift. The wounds were still fresh, but the healing had begun. I didn't know if I would ever truly feel like real family again. Maybe that was something I'd have to define for myself. But for the first time, I believed it was possible. And that was enough to keep going. A year has passed since that New Year's Eve, and life has settled into a new kind of normal. The wounds from that night haven't disappeared, but they've faded, leaving behind scars that remind me of how far we've come. My relationship with my parents is different now, more honest, sometimes awkward, but real in a way it never was before. We talk about the past, about Miriam, about the choices they made and the fears that shaped them. There are still moments of pain, but there's also understanding and a willingness to move forward together. My brother and I are still learning how to be siblings again. Some days it feels easy, like we've found our way back to those childhood summers. Other days, the old resentments creep in, and we have to remind ourselves that healing isn't a straight line. We're both trying, and maybe that's all that matters. I've spent a lot of time thinking about what it means to belong. For so long, I believed that family was something you had to earn, that love was conditional, that I was always one misstep away from being left out in the cold. But I've learned that belonging isn't about blood, or secrets, or even shared history. It's about acceptance of others and of yourself. I've started building a life that feels true to who I am. I've reached out to Miriam, and though our relationship is still new and uncertain, it's a piece of my story I'm grateful to finally understand. I've made friends who feel like family, people who see me for who I am and love me anyway. I've learned to trust my own worth, to stop measuring myself against impossible standards, and to forgive, not just my family, but myself. If you're listening to this and you've ever felt like an outsider, I want you to know you're not alone. Family isn't always simple and it isn't always easy, but it's not something you have to chase or beg for. Sometimes, the family you choose is stronger than the one you're born into.